Okay.
Good evening. Welcome
Hello.
to the first episode of COVID Cares. This is the initiative from Heartcrafted Foundation, a foundation which is focused on working with women from the underprivileged segments of the society. The primary objective of today's discussion, and we are planning to have a series of discussion, is to look at some of the stories which we have heard about or seen or had been part of it ourselves, where ordinary people have gone out of their way to support people in the COVID times. Now, one thing, which is there in everybody's mind, and I have taken some snapshots of that, which is we call it the migrant crisis. We had this lockdown of 23rd of March, and after a couple of weeks, we saw hundreds, thousands, probably millions of people who came out on the street. And we came to know these are the people who actually have no income, nothing to eat, and they are trying to go back to the only place which they feel comfortable, their home. Now, they are one part of the story, but there was an equally large number, if not more, of people who got stuck at their own home in very similar situations. They didn't have any income, they had no money left, and they were literally starving. So we know that there are hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of people helped them in multiple ways. And one of the stories which you are going to hear about today was spearheaded by a gentleman who is a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Sudipto. Sudipto is a multifaceted personality. Sudipto is, of course, academically IIT Kharagpur 1996 batch. He is founder of two startups. He is at present working for a large IT organization. Sudipto is a best-selling author of 3 books. In fact, he can be called the Dan Brown of India. He writes those sort of mysteries going back into the history. Sudipto is a musician. He plays the piano. He has given music,
Violin.
violin. He has given music to drama productions. And Sudipto is one person whom I know who has, something unique. He has a Wikipedia profile. But today's story is not about Sudipto, the author or the violinist, but Sudipto who stood up for the people of Bangalore. And during COVID time, Sudipto and a bunch of his friends came up with a very unique model, which we are going to talk about today. So before I give out anything, let us straight away go to Sudipta and start hearing from him the story. So Sudipta,
Okay.
my first question to you is, I know quite a bit about the work we have done, but maybe even before we get into what you did, I would like to know that, how did you start? How did the calling come to you? Of course, a lot of
Okay.
us were disturbed, but very few actually went out and helped.
Okay. So, I mean, how it started, right? It's like it could be a coincidence or might be, I mean, some like weird connection. So, like, I think the lockdown started on 23rd or 24th March. I mean, I don't remember
Yes,
the right.
23rd.
And immediately, I think within the next few days, right, all those like pictures started like popping up in the channels, right? That like people were carrying the belongings, even their small kids, infants on their shoulder, right, and they're walking, right. And then one of my friends, who actually happens to be a Sri Lankan from, I mean, a Tamil from Sri Lanka, and who was also a refugee, right, and same with us, right, like me, my family were refugee, I mean, my father and had been a refugee, right? So so he told me, I mean, he's in US now. Just he sent me WhatsApp message that, don't you think that actually the pictures that you're seeing, right, it reminds of refugees? So when when those pictures connecting with refugee, like that didn't, I think, come up in anybody's mind. And of course, like it didn't come up in my mind also, right? That the same problem, I mean, which might have happened in the 47, a similar thing is happening now also, but might be like in a different way. But still, the stories were like, the pictures were same, right? People carrying their infants on their shoulder, right? So then, and then again at the same time, like all the stories are coming more from Delhi. Like in the beginning, because I believe the major impact happened in Delhi, because there are a lot of the migrant workers from Rajasthan, right? Where people can actually walk and go to Rajasthan, right? Like in Bangalore, people who are coming from Assam or Bengal, Orissa, right? I mean, they cannot directly go, right? So the migration happened from Bangalore much late, right? But I think the immediate migration happened from Delhi, because actually they were in close by areas, right? And then when there were pictures and also claims by the government that like we're doing central kitchens and all those things, right? But then one thing struck me that like it's a lockdown, right? So you are asking people to stay at home, and then if you are doing a central kitchen, and when you are claiming that I will feed you 3 lakh people in a day, then it happened very contradictory to me, right? That you are saying that you stay at home, and then you are asking people to walk from Noida, from Dwarka to like to Connaught Place, 30 kilometers away, then you come there and then you flock all 3 lakh you will feed in a day. So I mean, I asked a few people, right? And at the same time, I saw in Bangalore also, everybody was talking about central kitchens, right? And like there were a lot of hotels who came up with this these plans, right? That like we're running kitchen, right? So you please come and join and you have food, right? So that's why it was striking me. I mean, what are we trying to do, right? The intention is right, intention is very good, but then like it's violating the very tenet of lockdown, right? So that's why, like I was thinking, I mean, what could be done, right? And incidentally, I stay on Sarjapur Road in an area which has a lot of migrant laborers from my, from my home state, which is Bengal, and also there are people from Assam, and a lot of the errands I get done by them, because like I know Bengali, I just go there, right? I mean, I talk to them, and many of them actually they speak in a dialect which my parents also speak at home, right? I mean, like some Bengal dialect, right? I mean, we are like all from Bangladesh, right? So I mean, I jail with them, right? So I mean, one day I went to their shack, because I mean, I used to call the plumbers and electricians from those slums, right? So I went there, and then I talked to them, and that's when I realized the problem is that all slums, at least that was the like learning I had later. But at that time, I realized that every slum where you have some few thousand people, say from Bengal or from Odisha, they have an entire economy running around them. So they have their own grocery stores, they have their own hajam shop, they have their own fish stall, mutton stall, right? So interestingly, I realized that those entire paraphernalia of that entire small economy, right? It's a small Bengal which resides in Sarjapur Road. You will find a small Orissa, you will find a small Assam, and they're all self-contained, right? They have everything. I mean, they don't have to go out, right? Within half kilometer, they have their entire set of things. They have their shopping malls, they have their clothes shop, their barber, their tailor. But what I figured out, that they are telling that the same shop where they have their khata, meaning, like all the migrant laborers, they get paid only once a week, right? So the rest of the week, they actually run on khata, and then actually they pay the shopkeeper. Now the shopkeepers are also as poor as them, right? Because a person who is running a small meat shop or a small restaurant, right? He's also one of them, right? So, I mean, they also don't have a lot of money, right? So, I mean, they are also going dry, because, I mean, they are not getting money from their buyers. So the khata has stopped, right? So that's why it struck me that entire system is already there. And the kirana shops, even the most interior of the kirana shops also get the supply from everybody. I mean, they get supply from ITC, they get supply from Procter & Gamble. So there is no, dearth of the existing infrastructure to, like get all the staff like to the last mile. So what was missing was that small portion where the migrant laborers were not able to run the khata, and they're not able to pay to the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper didn't have money to buy the stuff and and give them. So that's when I started discussing, and then again, like Shuman Badsen, one of my batchmates from KGP, incidentally, like he works in a bank now. So then, like he suggested, like if that is the problem, so then actually let's just close the gap, right? So only gap is that actually the shopkeeper is not getting money from the migrant laborers, so pay money to the shopkeeper, and then the entire like the system will run. So that's what we did, right? So then I went and talked to one of the shopkeepers, like he was also a Bengali. So I asked him, problem ki, right? So then he told, see, if I know these guys and I know them very well, so there is no problem about authentication, right? It is not that they will run around, right? So if you pay me, right, and if you tell me, which are people to give, like I will give, right? So that's where we sat with the shopkeeper. We created a small, packet, right? 250 rupees. In that, we thought that it will have 5 kilo of rice, and then 1 kilo each of onion, potato, and then actually half liter oil, 1 soap, and some biscuits, right? So 250 in 250 rupees, we figured out that a small family of 3 to 4 people can sustain 2 days. So that's how we started, right? Like we paid money to the shopkeeper, and then also I have my own driver, right? Who is also local, right? And incidentally, again, like I'm also very proud about this thing, that the person who used to drive my car, 20 years back, when we first shifted to Sarjapur Road area, he has grown up now and he has become a lawyer, right? And he's a local, yes, the person
he's a lawyer.
who used to drive. Yes, he's a lawyer now. He's a like he studied out of his own, will, and he, all the night schools and all the night colleges, right? So that guy is now a social worker here, right? So I took him with me, because actually they are the original residents of this place, and like they're localites, they know everything, right? So with the help of my current driver and my previous driver, like who is now a lawyer, so we just walked around, and then we figured out, like identified the like the first 100 families like that. And then in 2-3 days, when the system started working, right, then we started raising more money, and then from Sarjapur Road, it moved to other parts of Bangalore. And then in the second or third day, I remember I got a call from somebody in Bombay, and he told that you have done something for my for my neighbor in Midnapur. Like they actually belong to a small village in Midnapur, which is one of the like relatively poor districts in Bengal. So that's how, like, the people who come from that village and who were staying in Bangalore, they shared this story with their neighbors, who might be in Bombay. And so that's how, like, we moved to another city, which was Bombay. And that's how I believe the rest of the thing, it just went in word of mouth. And then I think in a month we were in 7 states. We were also helping somebody in a place which is some 20-30 kilometers away from Haridwar, on the route to Badrinath, right? So like from that interior village also, somebody called me. Again, he also hails from the same village in Midnapur, and all these people were either tailor or very skilled zari worker who work in a lot of boutique shops. Like like their employers are actually fashion designers, right? Because now they use a lot of the zari work in their, like in some exotic, dresses, right? So such people, like, who had, quite a good living. It's not that everybody was like construction worker, right? They were, glass blower. Somebody worked in a place near Rishikesh. So they worked in a factory where actually they are very expert glass blowers. I didn't even know that, there is an entire village in Midnapur, who might be like, among the best glass blowers in India. And they told me that actually they are very sought after, and from various states they get calls, because some some particular skill of glass blowing, which I'm not aware of, they know. So that's how it started growing. And our the protocol is very simple, right? We just talk to the person, we ask them to share their names, their pictures, and like per family, one Aadhaar card copy, they have to send through WhatsApp. And that's it. And then I asked them to go to the local kirana shop and then and then make me talk to the owner. I talked to the owner. I asked them, I mean, do you know this guy? So I mean, when they authenticate, yes, I know these guys. I mean, they stay here, and yes, I mean, I know that actually they have three people in one group or four people in one group, right? So some basic authentication was done, and then I mean, I transferred money to the shopkeeper either through Google Pay or Phone Pay. I mean, whatever they have, and that's all. I mean, it's like it just happened without much groundwork and also without much infrastructure. Actually, with no infrastructure, I mean, without any infrastructure, like it started working. That's all.
Yeah. So that's actually, I when I hear you and I read, and I was obviously, somewhat keeping track of what's happening on Facebook also. On you were giving almost a daily update. I think there are so many things probably became visible to you, which is normally invisible to us, right? That there are people who cannot sustain maybe even 5 days if they don't have income, and even 250
Yes,
rupees
yes.
is something, give them the
Mm.
food. Or as you said, the highly skilled, normally we feel that people who are having some skill, which is in demand, will be protected. But in these circumstances, there is no work, no money. Maybe their
Mm.
employers also are not in great shape. We know that many MSMEs are struggling for many years and on the
Mm.
verge of closure. So I mean, I know some of my friends. Now I wanted to just this is one of your own plotting which I took. So these are the number of families which you supported in these respective areas, right?
No, so these are the locations where we
Now
supported,
the
right? So
numbers below that, for Delhi 45, Haridwar 12, what these are?
families, yes, yeah, these are families.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So you have not kept, I think,
Clusters actually,
Bangalore.
yes.
Bangalore
Hmm.
will be the largest number.
Largest, yes, is
Yeah.
Bangalore. So I think out of 8,500 people that we covered, I mean, roughly 8,500, I think close to 6,000 were in Bangalore.
And second was Asansol. I see that some 1,500
So
at least.
second, yes. So second was Asansol. Okay, so like one big cluster. Okay, so that is again another interesting thing we learned, right? So everybody was talking about migrant laborers, but what about rack pickers? So rack pickers again another huge cluster in which is not in the radar of anybody. They don't have Aadhaar card. They don't have so they are out of the radar of everybody, right? I mean, they don't give votes, right? So same thing. First, so one of my batchmates from KGP, he's from Asansol, right? So he like his school friends, so they were, I mean, active in Asansol, and then actually they one of them called him and then told that actually there is a huge cluster of Santal rat pickers, right? Who are like Santals are in general, tribals are in general a little poor, right? And then Santal rat pickers, like, I mean, nobody was even looking at them, right? And they were in one corner of Asansol. So 1,500 people were there, right? So then, so that was at the beginning of our, initiative when our funds were not that much, right? So 1,500 people. I mean, so I mean, it needed some, I think, 1 lakh rupees every week, right? So at that point of time, I think in the first week we didn't have that much money, right? So that's where, so that was the first motivation for us to go all out. We just went ballistic in Facebook, we started calling our friends in the US. We started calling everybody because we wanted to really do something for them, right? So immediately we needed 5-6 lakh rupees to at least sustain that cluster for a month, because initially the lockdown was for, I think, 3 weeks, I believe, right?
3 weeks, 21 days, yeah.
So that was, I mean, we did, and then we figured out another interesting thing near Marathalli in Bangalore. I mean, I'm like, you might be knowing that place actually. Sort of, I mean, I don't remember the place, but there also it looks like there's a huge slum again of rack pickers from Eastern India. Mainly from Bengal.
Munekulala is the place.
It's not Munekulala. It's on the other side of the road. Like Munekulala is actually on
Okay.
side, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
On the side of on your
Okay,
side
I
of
don't
the
know what I
road,
stay
right?
here. That's the problem. We don't even know the city behind the
No, no,
buildings.
no. So that's the thing, during this time, I also discovered a lot of slums, around me, which, like I've been staying in Sarjapur Road area I moved here in 2000 February. So it's, more than 20 years I've been staying here, but I discovered many slums for the first time in my life, and they're all within 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers of the place I stay. So, they have a total different world, right? Which is invisible to us. And where they come from, where they go, nobody knows, right? So then again, somebody, talked about another cluster of rat pickers from Bengal. And that was again very interesting thing. You have a slum for rat pickers from one region of India, right? So they also have their own, like regional clusters, right? I mean, rat pickers from Bengal, rat pickers from Orissa, right? So there again, we did something, but by that time we had little better funds, right? So in one shot we did it for them. So now, like we like diversified. I mean, if I were to use that word, from only migrant laborers to other people who are, I mean, nobody was talking about, right? Then another interesting thing happened. Like as I am, myself a musician, right, and I understand the pain of doing music, right? Again, my another of my batch, my department mate, like from KJP, like who is himself a tabla player, and he works in Microsoft. He's in Hyderabad. So he told me, Sudipto, like I know, I mean, my guru in Calcutta, I mean, who taught me tabla, he is telling that actually there are a lot of like small time petty musicians, right? So musicians means people who sing on the local trains. So they are all jobless, and 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 they know nothing else in their life, right? They're all, if not very talented singer, but of course they have a skill, I mean, which can be only utilized in train. And the pitch they have, and the particular type of song they sing in train, they cannot sing the same song anywhere else, because like it's again the ambience, right? I mean, they're, for generations they have been singing some particular type of songs which can only be heard or listened to in trains. So they're all jobless, right? And then there are a lot of instrument makers. I mean, I know personally because I used to go to Chitpur. So Chitpur is a place. So near Lal Bazar, there's a huge place, one or two blocks. They're all instrument makers. So like I used to go, I mean, to repair my violin there. Right? So I mean, I had some idea, right? That entire place is jobless now, because like when people don't have, like when people cannot go out, I mean, how can they go to repair the harmonium and tabla? Though the bongs are obsessed with music, but still, I mean, if they're not allowed to go out, so the entire Chitpur was jobless, right? And those guys, helpless guys, they know nothing other than in making instrument, right? If you ask them to now suddenly go and, I mean, work as a construction worker, they cannot, right? Because like they can't, right? I mean, as simple as that. So that guy, he then called me. So I mean, we had a conference call, and we figured out. Then we thought first we'll try the local trend, singers in local trends, right? So that's how we identified people from Murshidabad. So I mean, my friend's guru, he did all the background work. So that's where we moved to another different domain. See, now if I tell to others, right, that we are doing this for musicians, right, I think a lot of people might even understand, the gravity of the thing, right? And the musician, we're talking about migrant laborers, and we're talking about so poor people, and you are helping musicians, right? But if you think, right, they are also equally helpless and helpless like anybody else, and they're not in anybody's radar, right? I think how many people who do even know that, that particular sector is totally wiped out. People who sing in train, all the
Absolutely.
jhalmuri
No,
walas
it
and all the
just
puchka
don't,
walas, right?
as you rightly said, it just don't come in our consciousness that,
Exactly, correct.
that as this is the first time, for example, at least the musician part, I understood. And I'm thinking about the hawkers who are also in train,
Yes,
or the
same
people
thing,
who
right?
are, giving food, right? I mean, they can do only that because that is their workplace. And that is the only place they can be in. And anyway, there is no other place to go because
Exactly.
everything is closed.
Hmm.
And as you rightly said, with that, the 8 o'clock, people are going to office. That's a different mahal, and that you can't recreate
Hmm.
suddenly by sitting in a group and singing. Right now, I
Correct.
probably come to the closure, and I'll have 2, 3 questions, but I just wanted to vet with you a couple of numbers which you mentioned. You mentioned, of course, 8,000 families. I think you
No,
reached.
okay, not 8,000. No. So like 8,500 is the total number of people. So families will be roughly divided by 4.
Okay, so
So
around say 3,000, 2,500 families. I think you made
yes,
around
correct.
4,50,000 meals is
Meals,
sort of
correct.
number. And I
Yes,
think you raised
yes,
25 odd lakhs of money, right? Or
yes,
maybe
correct.
so
Yes,
approximately
I
maybe
close to that.
7 rupees per meal. Obviously, there is some other cost, and you
Yes.
look at people
Hmm.
who have their own way to make. That is one difference. You said that let's not
Hmm.
make food and give it to
Hmm.
people who can make it themselves, and
Correct, correct.
that will also protect
So
them
that
from
so that was
going.
also one. Hmm. So that was also one more learning, right? Because we figured out that all these people, they have their own cooking arrangement, right? I mean, they have the small chulla, they have the something, in their home, in their shacks, right? So it's not that they have to go out and get cooked food. What they need to reduce cost, even with the raw material, right? Because the moment you cook and distribute, right, again you are violating the maintain it, right? So many people will cook and then distribution takes time. So so this help. I mean, directly giving them the raw material, right? They
I'll
cook at their
probably,
home and they cook their own food.
I'm just saying that, yeah, while I hear you, I'm also trying to pull out another, image, which probably will be of interest to people. The distribution of the, the by the type of beneficiaries, right? I mean,
Okay, okay,
this
okay.
is what the
Yes, yes.
construction workers, daily wages,
Correct, correct.
musicians, which you just talked about,
Hmm.
rag pickers, shelter homes. Now, as I said, I have, we are of course also we wanted to keep it from 30 odd minutes, so a few minutes probably left. So I
Hmm.
just would like to have maybe a combination of two questions. One is, I'm sure you have seen or experienced, the very unexpected humanity, right? Which is also another
Correct.
revelation for this.
Hmm.
Because I remember one chat in that group that somebody sent 1 lakh rupee without even knowing, just based on some they heard and they just pushed the money without
Correct.
even
Hmm.
asking that,
Hmm.
and you are trying to
Hmm.
figure out that who has actually sent the money, right? And
Exactly.
uh, so that is one part. The So obviously that is something, a great revelation, I think, for all of us, that and I was hearing somewhere that that a bunch of people in the social sector were saying that, but for the people of India,
Hmm.
I think we estimate around 800, 900 people have died during the migration, but
Hmm.
the deaths would have been in thousands, but for the people of
Exactly.
India, the
Hmm.
way they
Hmm.
stood up. So that is one great thing. But my other question essentially is two. One is that was it model adopted by anybody else, any other group? And are you going to, this, of course, COVID is going to be there. So any plans
Hmm.
of future, you're going to do it again or something like that? Or what are two
So
things? Any
so
adoption, any future plan?
okay. So adoption is, I mean, there were few adoption. Like one of my friends, like he adapted, and he did in a smaller way in his apartment, right? Like mainly like so they were supporting their drivers, their cooks, and like the people, I mean, whom they know. And I think, I mean, somebody, I mean, told me that I think in Gurgaon also they tried a similar thing, but might not be in that large scale. But I mean, realized one thing that so there is some, I mean, level of either mistrust or might be apathy in adapting this trip. In fact, I talked to Bharat Sevastram also, right? So I mean, my
Hmm.
parents they go to Bharat Sevastram, right? So I mean, one day. I mean, she told me that they're also cooking foods and going to so many places, right? So I mean, I also know a few of them, right? So I talked to one of them. I was trying to explain, right? Why are you doing this, right? Like, the amount of energy you're spending, just transfer money and do, right? But somehow I believe there is some apathy, might be some psychological block that, seva have to be done by, unless you go and serve them food, you are not serving, right? So I think in this e-seva sort of thing, ultimately what we did is sort of, you can call it e-seva, right? Like, I mean, we did some sort of humble seva, but we didn't go and use our hands and our presence, right? So there is some level of psychological, I think, blockage towards this type of work or service, right? So I think it didn't pick up much. I tried to talk to a lot of people. In fact, I tried talking to a lot of NGOs, right? I mean, who are doing very good work and who are risking the lives of their volunteers, right? I tried to explain, but they really, first of all, they're not understanding what I'm talking, right? So I think either it was my failure to make people explain, or might be I don't know. I mean, why it didn't pick up and why people are not interested. And lastly, we are still continuing in a very small way, right? We are still supporting a few people in Bengal. Just I think some days back we got to know about 50 families who are. I'm staying near a place called Damun Harbor, which is again close to where I grew up in Behala. Like I grew up in Behala in Calcutta. So Damun Harbor is beyond Joka, right? So we're still doing, but the funds have fizzled out. I mean, we don't have much fund. We have some, I think, less than 1 lakh now. But I mean, we're still continuing because we're getting calls from a lot of people. The same people we helped, so they're still calling. Ki dada, econo kajkormo paini, right? So we're still doing in a small way because again the funds are very limited now.
So this discussion could have well been also into what could have been done better, and all of that, and I'm sure a lot of people are grappling with it, and we all have to work towards that. This situation is this, as you rightly said, that if 70 plus years after the independence also we are seeing scenes very similar to the refugees in your own country, it's a very sad tale, right? Of course,
exactly.
It has been brought to our view because of a very unique situation, which is a pandemic, and most of us we are living in our own world. We don't know what is there beyond our, as you said, that so many slums are there. In fact, I think most of the cities got surprised that where these people came from in the first place. Where were they?
Seriously, exactly.
But I guess there is a great silver lining that a lot of people have stood up, spent time. A lot of people who could not directly help, indirectly help in their which way, which is a tremendous amount of social goodwill which is created. So stories like yours will be learning as well as inspiration. I would have requested you to play the violin, but maybe we'll keep it for some other session.
Sure.
I got it wrong in the first place. I said something else, by the way. I don't know whether you play that also.
You should piano. No, actually, you told piano. I think maybe because
okay, piano.
I did publicly a lot of videos about piano with my son. Right?
Remember what is the most esoteric Western instrument I can think of. So Sudipto, thank you so much. We'll connect again.
It's my pleasure.
The same session some other time in Bengali for our Bengal audience.
Sure.
Take care. Stay safe.
I'd love to do that. Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.